USA Ultimate presents the 2017 U.S. Open Championships. It is indeed Championship Sunday. One more ticket to be punched into the finals later tonight. Minneapolis Dragon Thrust getting set to take on the defending champions, Boston Slow White, in this mixed semifinal division. Slow White and Dragon Thrust take on the winner of Mixtape out of Seattle and Philadelphia, Amp. Amp going a perfect 5-0 in pool play. And a pleasant good morning. Welcome to Championship Sunday here in Blaine, Minnesota. Sean Kinney alongside Evan Lepler. What a matchup here today in this first mixed semifinal. You have Dragon Thrust, who knows what it's like to wear the target on their back. They were three-time champions from 13 through 15. And then Slow White captured the championship last year. How's this one pan out today?
Well, don't think this Dragon Thrust team hasn't forgotten who ended their championship reign last year, because Boston Slow White really demoralized Dragon Thrust with a dominant performance in the semifinals. Dragon Thrust today looking for the first step of revenge.
Minneapolis Dragon Thrust has some experience back. This was a team that was founded back in 2009, led by Jake Henderson, and we talked about their dominant stretch. National champs in 13, 14, and 15. They have experience and they have talent with Brian Schoenrock.
Well, Brian Schoenrock is going to be important today because he can do a lot of different things. Defensively, he's a great athlete. He can guard a guy like Tanner Johnson for Slow White. He can guard any of their downfield cutters. But he also has developed an incredible chemistry playing with teammates like Josh Hemmis and Jay Drescher through the years. And because of that, he is one of the anchors of this 2017 team.
Off to a good start, the 3 goals and 2 assists this weekend. Boston Slow White, led by Marshall Goff. They captured this U.S. Open Championship along with the Nationals. However, Evelyn, it is a different-looking team this year.
Yeah, it is. They have a bunch of new faces. They've lost a few guys that moved over to the men's division that were key. But this is still a very strong squad coming back from a magical 2016. They almost won the Triple Crown Tour. A loss in the Pro Flight Finale championship game cost them that title as well. But Tanner Johnson is back. He wasn't sure during the college season where he would play club this year, but having him for a second year in a row in the mixed division, he's just a dominant downfield threat. And their head coach, Marshall Goff, he hasn't really added anything to his game, but everything is about 10% better than it was last year, and he was pretty darn good last year.
We're looking forward to a fun day of Ultimate here in Blaine, Minnesota. Who's going to earn the right to play under the lights tonight on ESPN2? We're moments away from the opening poll. Slow White and Dragon Thrust.
The U.S. Open Ultimate Championships are presented by Discraft Ultrastar. Find the official disc of USA Ultimate at more than 1,900 U.S. retail locations.
Minneapolis Dragon Thrust, their lineup today: Oakley, Adams, Clark, and Mexstroth, the cutters; McKean at lean, and lean, the handlers for head coach Jake Henderson. A team that lost their opening round pool play game, but then came back with 4 consecutive wins. They enter this semifinal with some momentum. Boston Slow White, defensively, they'll have Hatchet, Zalk, Johnson, Lundquist, Fisher, Hampton, and Montgomery Butler. Off to a good start this weekend with 15 assists for Slow White, coached by Marshall Goff.
So many of those assists going to Zalk and Johnson. They are 2nd and 4th in the tournament in goals. On the same team, 2 of the top 4, Zalk and Johnson. With those 2, it's not a huge surprise.
Like the case is always looking at the weather in the sport of Ultimate. Right now, hazy sunshine, 70 degrees. That wind is very light. That forecast might change as we go deeper into the day, but we'll keep our fingers crossed. There is a threat of rain around that 2 to 3 o'clock hour local time here in Minneapolis. But right now, beautiful morning for Ultimate as these 2 teams battle for the right to come back later tonight for the mixed championship.
It's year 6 of the U.S. Open, Sean. Our 2nd time here in Minnesota. 3 years ago, we were playing in 25, 30-mile-per-hour winds. It was a totally different type of game. This should be much cleaner and, frankly, much more exciting. They'll play open. Both these teams like to shoot it long.
Boston Slow White with the opening pole and mixed semifinal number 1 underway.
That was a dropped pull by Jake McKean, and that's a turnover. The most inauspicious start you could imagine to the semifinal game.
So right out of the gate, Slow White operating in the red zone as they go to work and try to get this opening break, and a pick called in the end zone.
Sean, I've seen dropped pulls before. You play long enough, you drop a pull. I've dropped 2 in my life. I remember them both vividly. You never forget that moment. I'm not sure we've had one in a semi or a final of a U.S. Open or a Club Nationals game yet on ESPN 3.
Kirsten Lundquist over to the far sideline, just a few yards away from the goal line. Do you suspect maybe some nerves on that type of play, or is just it's a fluke? It happens once in a great while.
I really think it's a fluke. You know, the Frisbee is a fluttering piece of plastic, 175 grams, and even the best players are going to drop the disc 1 out of 1,000 times. And for Jake McCain, I mean, he's in his 6th year on the team. It's not nerves, I don't think. But Tanner Johnson with his 12th goal of the tournament.
Give the helper to Olivia Hampton as Johnson gets Slow White the early break.
Well, here's the pull, and let's see if the disc does anything funny at the last moment. No, just a total flub. Jake McCain, maybe he shouldn't have shaved his creepy beard that he had earlier in the week. Maybe it threw off the balance, I don't know. But Tanner Johnson, I mean, he's really going to be a tough cover. And I think Schoenrock and Drescher are the type of guys that could match up, but it's not going to be an easy task. I'm not sure anyone in the mixed division has the ideal matchup for Tanner Johnson, and that reason right there is the reason that this Slow White team remains a true championship contender.
Johnson last year was really on his way in talk for Player of the Year material for a good chunk of last year in his first full season with Boston Slow White. Put up monster numbers. Part of that proud tradition at UMass Amherst. Only 20 years old in his 2nd year. And Slow White with the early break.
I was reminded before the game, Sean, that these two teams met not just in the semifinals last year, but also in the semifinals of Club Nationals 2 years ago. Dragon Thrust, of course, won 2 years ago. Slow White knocked him off last year, but these are the last 4 club champions. Of course, Dragon Thrust with 3 and Slow White with 1. They have different styles of the way they go about their business, but they're both very effective, as their records suggest.
Dragon Thrust comes up empty again. Getting a hand on it with the D was Tanner Johnson. So here comes Slow White. Another break opportunity for Boston. And a disastrous start here in front of a good home contingency for Minneapolis.
I'm sure Marshall Goff is pleased, because while Slow White has gone undefeated this tournament, they haven't been without bumps on the road. Here we go.
There's a bomb downfield on the Huck, elevating perfectly is Johnson, and he'll haul it in. Slow White in business again. Fitzgerald will wait. Comes back to Johnson. He'll turn and face. Zip it into the end zone for the score as Kirsten Lundquist holds it in. 2 early breaks for Boston. They go up 2-0.
Absolute perfect start for Boston Slow White. Just Schuweiler not recognizing that the defender was in the lane poaching. Annie Fisher with the D. And then, I mean, that's Tanner Johnson playing the first 2 D points of the game, and he's got a goal and an assist. I mean, he hasn't even played an offensive point yet. He'll be headed into his junior year at UMass in the fall. Lundquist shaking free, the 6th-year member of Slow White out of Middlebury. And Tanner Johnson, 2 years ago, when he had just graduated from high school and was entering his freshman year at UMass, played a season with Boston Ironside. Chose to play mixed last year. Talked to him at College Nationals. He wasn't certain. He talked about Ironside or Dig, another Boston team that competing at Nationals. Chose Boston Slow White and Marshall Goff. I don't think he actually did like a Nick Saban fist pump in his office, getting another 5-star recruit, but certainly in his mind, you could understand him thinking that.
Slow White has been impressive in the first 2 days. The pounding of Mixtape, I think, caught a lot of people off guard, winning 15-8, off to a strong start here in this semifinal. Let's see if Dragon Thrust can get some type of rhythm offensively. There's a hop downfield. They're looking for Drescher. Has a couple of steps, led beautifully, and he'll make the catch in the end zone for the score. And a terrific counter by one of the big stars on this Minneapolis squad, Jay Drescher.
When Jeff Trosvig released this throw, Drescher wasn't even cutting. And then he saw the throw up and said, I gotta go. He turned on the jets, realized before his defender, Pat Barron, did. You see, Drescher had absolutely stopped cutting, but that is a 70-plus yard flick bomb from Jeff Trosvig. Former baseball player, has just an absolute cannon.
Drescher, like so many of his teammates, a Minnesota native, started playing ultimate back in his freshman year at Duluth with the Northern Lights. Showing his breakaway speed and beautiful assist.
And Jay Drescher, he'll play every D point for Dragon Thrust. Reason he was on the field there on offense is because they got broken twice, and they got to get one of their top stars on the field. But Drescher's marquee skill is his defensive intensity and his ability to convert after creating a turnover. You know, all these games through the years can run together. I rewatched the mixed final from 2 years ago, earlier this week when Dragon Thrust beat Mixtape. I had forgotten that Dragon Thrust overcame multiple 3-point deficits in that game. So this is a team that will not be deterred by an early deficit.
See the contact here with Drescher jumping the lane with Tommy Ferguson.
That's a dangerous bid right there from Drescher because he landed near the legs of Ferguson. Glad Ferguson's all right.
Working to the far side, Slow White pushes opposite sideline. They dump it back off to Jeff Smith. Smith lobs it softly to Trahey. Trahey right back to the handler, Smith. Being marked by Jacob Lee. First offensive possession for Slow White. They have the 2 breaks from their D-line, up 2-1 in this first half. And the bid and the D from Minneapolis Dragon Thrust as Schoenrock was able to get his hand on it. And now Schoenrock going deep, trying to run underneath it, but it sails just a bit too far and wide.
Well, his nickname is Strings because he's lanky and very athletic, not afraid to leave his feet. Not surprised that this shot went up. He certainly had plenty of space to work with, but Lean didn't release it with the outside-in blade angle that he wanted.
Smith and Slow White back to work with Vicky Chang. Comes right back to Smith. Loose mark here by Drescher. Gives plenty of room for Ferguson to survey his options. He goes back to Chang. Chang up ahead as Trahey was able to get free. Now he'll loft it downfield, looking for Westgate, and too far out in front.
And even if it was a perfect throw, Sarah Mextroth would have been there. One of the biggest changes for Dragon Thrust this year is that they no longer have Sarah Ancio, who along with Sarah Mextroth have been arguably the 2 most dominant women's players in the mixed division. Ancio has moved to Iowa. She's now playing with Madison Heist in the women's division. I think she will thrive playing for Heist. Mextroth still can do great things in the mixed game as well.
7 goals for Mextroth entering this semifinal, but again, another TO by Dragon Thrust, and it gives Boston the disc back in prime real estate.
A shaky offensive start to this game from Dragon Thrust. That's perhaps the obvious statement of the morning. Dragon Thrust wouldn't have been here if they didn't beat Metro North in their last game of pool play.
Chang into the end zone. This time, Westgate is able to get the feed in and make the bidding catch. Rachel Westgate in her second year, the 27-year-old, puts Boston up 3-1.
Trying to be a little cheeky with a high release flick. Drescher turns it over. And, you know, we give Jay Drescher some flack for some of his questionable bids. This is an example of him showing fantastic body control to not collide with the player. He dives around Westgate, and Westgate makes the nice grab.
Rachel Westgate played for Madison Heights from 2012 to 2014, was a Brute Squad member in 2015 before coming over to Slow White last year for their championship run. Vicky Chang gets the helper for Boston and a 3-1 lead for Slow White, something that we've seen the past couple of days, quick starts by this Boston team.
Yeah, they have the firepower to do just that. One note for Slow White, they're off to a great start without Hannah Baranis, one of their captains who tweaked a hamstring injury earlier in the tournament. And she is on the sidelines in uniform. She was warming up in cleats, but about 30 minutes before the game went to Marshall Goff and said, I'm not going to go. Took her out of the starting lineup, put Annie Fisher in her spot.
Jake McCain over to Mike Clark. Clark, one of the team captains, 8 goals this year. Swings it back over toward the center, giving up some ground, but making the grab is Austin Lean. Lean will fire an ill-advised shot and an easy D that time as Johnson jumped in the lane.
That's not characteristic of what we see from Dragon Thrust. They don't usually force a deep shot male to male just because it's there. During their reign of going to the semis 4 years in a row, winning 3 titles in a row, they always really excelled in utilizing their women and turning the Sarahs and Emily Bacon, Jamie Glader into stars.
Hey, you look at this Dragon Thrust team so far, they have relied on their women heavily for goals through the first 2 days. 3 of their top 4 goal scorers, women on this roster, so they still have that firepower. Josh Hemish gets it to Clark. Clark with the tight mark being applied by Tanner Johnson. Swings it near side, our first talk of Martha Lean. And Lean throws and a nice save. And it looked like that was going to hit the turf. Keeping it alive was Clark. And the possession continues for Dragon Thrust. On the backhand toward the end zone, a couple of different options and chasing it down from Minnesota, and Dragon Thrust gets another as Clark able to run underneath it.
I'm not certain who this throw was intended for, but first Clark saved the possession, coming back to the disc just before it hit the grass. And then this is just a rising backhand to the break side. Pretty sure it was intended for Hemish, popped over his head, but because the defense was smartly defending the open side, it left this break side advantage for Dragon Thrust and leading to the goal. Not the smoothest offensive point they've played this weekend, but an important hold nonetheless.
Yeah, he had 3 potential targets there with Hemish, Barthen, and Clark, who was the deepest, and it's Mike Clark gets the goal, and Dragon Thrust now down 1, 3-2.
Now they needed the win against Metro North, as I mentioned. Metro North was very impressive this weekend. You know, they're a different team from last year. They don't have Chris Mazer anymore, but a 15-7 win was pretty dominant. Jake Hender said it was by far the best game that we played. They trusted each other. They had great intensity on D. And I was thinking about the concept of trust in Ultimate, because it's become a cliche. Every coach, every captain says we have to trust each other. how do you know if you have trusted each other enough? You almost have to put yourself into a truth detector a day or two later and really ask yourself, did we trust each other? Or did I look someone off and not trust the player and choose someone I was more comfortable with? It's really hard to quantify that category of trust, but everybody in Ultimate talks about it like it's one of the most important things in the sport to be great.
We saw Boston with a turnover, dragon thrust, see if they can capitalize and get the break back. Trosvig, who already has one impressive assist, shovels it up ahead safely along the sideline, and they'll fire in uncontested. And dragon thrust ties it up at 3 apiece. Schoenrock hauls it in, and a break for Minneapolis.
Well, the turnover, just miscommunication. Smith gives it away. And then the layout grab to keep possession alive. And then this cheeky high release flick from Trosvig sets up Alicia Carr's assist. And we saw Jay Drescher got partially hand blocked on that forced high release flick. It's not an easy throw. And you got to really practice that a long time. It's a very unnatural release for most players, but Trosvig has all the release points, and he gets the hockey assist with Strings and Carr involved in the score.
Evan, let's go back to the conversation about trust, especially with a team like Boston that has so many young players. They have a number of first-year players with this program. These tournaments, how long does it take to build that trust? This is a U.S. Open event that was pushed back about a month. It traditionally was held over the 4th of July weekend. Here we are in August. You get set for the Pro Championships coming up out in Seattle before the Nationals. How's that trust progress?
Well, I think as far as the U.S. Open is concerned, the quality of play this year has been a couple notches significantly above what it's been in the past. And that's a byproduct of moving it later into the season. As for how long it takes to develop that trust, I'm not sure you can quantify it. We get an offsides call, which allows us to continue the conversation. I think it's different for every team. You know, in the mixed division, some teams practice every single week. Some teams don't practice at all. Some teams practice at tournaments. A lot of teams that don't practice at all have veterans of the men's and women's division that have so much skill and experience, they're able to get away with putting it together. But those are the teams perhaps that don't have the same trust as a team like Dragon Thrust that practices regularly. Seattle Mixtape has begun to practice more regularly. Philly Amp, one of those teams as well. Boston Slow White certainly practices a bunch too.
Slow White back on the offense, tied at 3. Turner goes into the center. They dump it back out to Trahey. Trahey swivels it over near sideline to Cheng. Cheng on the mark from Erica Bacon, and we have a call downfield, a pick call. Bacon's one of those ferocious defenders for Minneapolis Dragon Thrust. I always enjoy watching her. Lays it all on the line each and every day. Hard-nosed player. She's denying Cheng right now as Ryan Turner comes to it. Turner sends it over to Trahey. An eye out on Lexi Zalk. We haven't mentioned her a lot. Here's the D by Dragon Thrust. And a chance for Minneapolis to take their first lead.
There's Jamie Glader. Great speed and anticipation to get that underneath D. An important break opportunity here for the Minneapolis D-line.
Jacob Lean will take a shot, lofting downfield, looking for Schoenrock. Here comes Johnson, and he elevates perfectly on the timing.
You know what? Schoenrock played that about as perfectly as he could, and he still couldn't make the play because Tanner played it perfectly too. I mean, Tanner had the position, Strings went up to his apex, and Strings at 6'1" doesn't have the apex that Johnson has at 6'4", and that's why Tanner got that sky.
High stall, Strings, high stall. Yeah, grind it. Yes, Jacob.
See what they come in at here as Sullivan from his goal line for Boston slow white. A mark by Pat Niles. They go over to Trahey. Trahey lofts, looking for Lexi Zalk, and she can't get to this one. And a Boston turnover.
You see the size mismatch. Strings went up early. He was there, and Johnson, just his A-plus game, a little bit better than Stronrock's A-plus game on that particular play. It's the throw, Sean, that I think is a little questionable. Throwing deep to that matchup. I'm not sure you want to trust Johnson or test Johnson deep. If Johnson's on Schoenrock, he has to be more of an underneath facilitator.
Better options available, you think. Mextroff lets her fly. 50-50 up into the end zone, and it's taken away. Knocked out of there again by Ryan Turner. So slow white showing some solid deep defense as Turner was able to get up.
And that was outrageous vertical leap from Turner. Going up early and over. Turner, McCain for the play.
Turner's one of those first-year guys with slow white, the 24-year-old out of Massachusetts, and the timeout taken. 3-3 here in the first half. And Boston team rolling through the pools. They opened up with a 15-10 win against Mischief. They go 5-0. Beat Loose 15-13. Pounded Mixtape 15-8. Had a tough one with Noise. And then they beat Team Mexico 16-14.
Yeah, they trailed in many of those games. We were watching some of that Mischief game early on Friday morning. They were down 7-5 and then walked to another field and all of a sudden came back and they were up like 12-8. It was an outrageous run to just seize control. And I mean, frankly, Boston said we didn't really do a whole lot. They just decided that they didn't want to play possession ultimate and catch the disc anymore.
Minneapolis Dragon Thrust, the number 2 team in pool play. AMP win a perfect 5-0. That's a team we're both really impressed with. That AMP Mixtape semifinal should be a wonderful matchup. Metro North finishes 3-2. Dragon Thrust lost to AMP 15-10, but then they followed suit with 4 straight wins to power their way into this stage here on this championship Sunday.
I'm very curious to see what's going to happen in the AMP Mixtape semifinal. I think AMP is the more disciplined team, and perhaps Mixtape slightly more explosive at the high end, and how that balance goes will be fascinating. How about that? Not a great timeout.
Mistake by Zalk. Jacob Lean, the pick, and then the quick assist into the end zone. Jamie Glader, and just like that, right after the timeout, before you can even snap a finger, Dragon Thrust jumps into the lead.
Yeah, that's a break. We're back on serve, and just a well-timed poach by Jacob Lean. You can always count on Jacob Lean for something creepy with his facial hair or hairdo, and he actually looking pretty normal this week. And I said to him and his team before the game, it's not normal to see you guys without Jacob sporting some bizarre look. I guess maybe the turban on his head.
Well, I think Jake McCain's goatee maybe filled that void this weekend that we saw earlier.
Yeah, Jacob Lean, though, he has really come a long way. Become an impressive two-way player. He's filled a bunch of roles through his years on this team, both defensively and offensively. It's his sister-in-law, Martha, that really started to get him involved in Ultimate. Martha liked Ultimate, so Austin started playing. Martha and Austin, of course, got married a couple years ago now. And Jacob, the younger brother of Austin, well, he wanted to tag along. And he said he's been better than his brother and sister-in-law ever since.
The young ones in the family always have that luxury to say. All right, so let's see how Boston handles a little bit of adversity for the first time. Remember, they were in control early, but now they trail for the first time 4-3 as they send out their offensive unit, highlighted by Tanner Johnson.
Drescher's on Johnson. It's a good matchup.
Low throw dug out by Johnson. He'll turn and face upfield. Look for his cutters downfield. Nothing open. Spins it back to the center. On the mark for Dragon Thrust. Now a backhand, looking for Johnson. There's that Johnson-Drescher match, and it's tipped away. Johnson unable to get around Drescher. Excellent body position. There is a foul called, as the two will discuss it.
Very early on, Drescher said to himself, I'm not going to be able to sky this guy. So position is way more important than going to the disc, because they were stride for stride.
Keep it on the field, fans.
The unique aspect of Ultimate is the two players will try to work it out. If they cannot, that's when they will bring in the observer as we take another glance. What do you think, Evan? I agree.
I agree as well. I think that's the type of play that in an unobserved game, if you call a foul on that and don't allow the minimal amount of physicality that just the body positioning creates, that could produce a call fest later in the game. You accept a certain level of contact. It's a social contract when you enter the field of play. And I think Tanner Johnson will realize that he'll want to be able to do what Drescher did on defense on the other side of things as well.
It's a 65-yard huck downfield to Sullivan, and then he caps it off with the assist in the end zone for the score. Dragon Thrust with Kat Ritzman in her first year, one of the younger players on this roster, and the hometown folks here in Blaine, just north of the Minneapolis area, up 5-3.
Minneapolis using the huck well. Beautiful, level, deep shot backhand. And then Sullivan finding Ritzman, who Jake Henderson says, at 22 years old, she's like a younger Jamie. Small, quick, fast, lethal around the end zone. Ritzman played at University of Delaware, just moved to the Twin Cities. She has great familiarity because of her growing up in New York and Delaware. She knows the AMP team really, really well. So if they do meet up with AMP again, I mean, they're familiar with them already, of course, but she has the scouting report on the Philadelphia team.
So we've seen in this first half, if you start to look for trends, we've seen Dragon Thrust utilize that deep huck. That's kind of been the game changer for them, beating Slow White.
Yeah, it's been a 4-0 run. I mean, from 3-1 down to 5-3 up. That's 3 breaks in a row. And
Kat says, what do I do when the camera's on me? You smile. That's what you do first, and she has that smile down. Youthful energy on this Dragon Thrust squad and a 2-point lead. Trying their latest run.
I don't think it's going to be the difference in the game by any means, but you better believe both of these teams want to be on ESPN2 tonight. That is in their mind. Jake Henderson said, it's something I've been thinking about for a while.
And another turnover by Boston Slow White. Pat Niles will look to make them pay right away, but the D by Turner as he tipped it out of bounds. Beautiful bid that time by Turner, and let's see if that gets some momentum back on Boston's side.
Super impressed by the athleticism of Ryan Turner. After the turnover, Turner giving up everything to get that disc back, sensing this game teetering on falling out of Slow White's control.
I know it's early, but remember that D there by Turner.
Absolutely.
Lexi Zalk gets it back over. One of the main handlers, Jeff Smith. Smith sends it over to Tommy Ferguson.
Like everything, though, that D becomes bigger if you capitalize on it. If you give it right back and they score, it doesn't mean much.
Like Smith wanted to go deep initially, and now Minnesota comes up with the play. Jumping in was Vanoka.
Yeah, one great D deserves another. Fun matchup. 2 first-year players, both incredible speedsters. Vanoka, not the biggest guy, but a lot of fun to watch. Incredibly quick and explosive.
Forehand flick, deflected around a couple of times. Boston got a hand on it initially, and that prevented Facet Carmen from hanging on.
Yeah, check this out.
I think it was Zalk. Yep.
Zalk just nicked it enough. The reaction, a reminder to mark her down for the D. She gets credit. That wasn't a drop. That was an excellent defensive play, peeling off the player she was guarding.
And look at the Callahan here for Dragon Thrust. We'll wait and see. The call made as Niles trying to avoid the contact.
Ooh. Coming back.
Yep, they're going to say foul. Contact as Niles almost set this place into a frenzy.
Really close. Hard to tell because our backs, the players' backs were between us and the disc. The observer had the better look. He said the slow white handler got it first.
Dragon Thrust seems like they're playing with 8 or 9 people right now. They're that quick. Momentum is a powerful weapon, and they clearly have it after a tough start. Smith looks. They'll fire downfield, looking for Ferguson. Beautifully led pass, and Slow White gets a much-needed point.
A couple Duke University Brimstone alums, Smith and Ferguson. That's really close. There is the clause in the rule book, tie goes to the offense. It's closer than I thought. Niles with a really athletic play. It's over. And then a couple guys I went up against in college. Smith finding Ferguson. I was asking Marshall Goff about Tommy Ferguson, and you know he's not a super young guy. He's not just out of college. Marshall Goff said, I kind of had this impression that he was like the best guy on everyone's summer league team, but I wondered, could he play at this level and be disciplined and be a cog in a system? And quickly he realized, yes, he can, and obviously he's got chemistry with Jeff Smith. And he has been a nice addition. Alex Trahey, another Duke alum on this team.
Smith having a really good tournament distributing the disc. That's his 12th assist. Slow White still down a break, trailing 5-4 as they send the pole a good 10 yards into the end zone. Here comes Dragon Thrust, Austin Lee.
By the way, there's nothing wrong with just being the best player on your summer league team.
Yeah, I was going to say, many would take that title.
Great fun without the same pressure necessarily, and it's a good time.
Schoenrock able to swing it. That opens up an opportunity back towards Schoenrock into front of the end zone. Not quite in. Schoenrock will patiently wait. Gets it in for the score. Clark with the assist. Barthen gets the goal, and Dragon Thrust a 6-4 lead.
Now this throw obviously set up by the shot from Austin Lean. Lean has some of the best vision I've ever seen in Ultimate. I mean, he, kind of like Carolyn Finney in the women's game, he sees the field as well as anybody. You very rarely see him make a bad decision with the disc. There, he saw the space to the break side, knew he could get that around backhand off, and playing with Mike Clark for long enough that they know what the other one wants. And Barthen, the beneficiary of the vision from Lean.
This is really uncomfortable.
Sierra Barthen, one of the few players on this Dragon Thrust team not with Minnesota roots to begin with. She comes from Wisconsin. Wisconsin lacrosse, third-year player with this Dragon Thrust team. Mike Clark has been reliable through the years. His 4th year with the team, he's used to getting those helpers, and he gets another, pushing Minneapolis to a 2-point lead. Any big surprises as you look back at this first half? Evan, anything sticking out to you that maybe has caught you off guard a little bit?
Just looking at my notes, turnovers by each point. There have been 3 turnover-free points so far in the game, all of them from Dragon Thrust. Slow White has had some holds, but they haven't had a turnover-free hold. Slow White has had turnover-free points, but not on offense. They've done it on defense. This would be the first one on O. There it is.
Zalk on the beautiful lead by Todd Herman. And they cover about 85 yards in 2 throws and a quick strike for Boston.
And the one thing I would say for Boston, I think Marshall Goff probably wants to get Lexi Zalk more involved. Great hustle near the end zone to bid for the Callahan by Marty Adams. And he didn't just bid and then give up an unmarked throw. He got up, set the mark. Good offense from Boston working it down the field. Lexi Zalk was the most dominant women's player at Nationals last year in the mixed division. And that was a huge reason why Slow White won the championship. I mean, Miles Montgomery Butler was the anchor and the quarterback. They had great athleticism from Davis Whitehead and Dave Truesdale. Erin Ray played great. She now has transitioned to the women's game plan for Brute Squad. But Zalk was virtually unguardable.
She led Slow White. You talk about that great national run last year. She led Slow White in points played. So you talk about durability at the national tournament. First team all-club mixed performer a season ago, and she has scored 14 goals so far through this weekend in Minneapolis.
I kind of feel like between these two teams, Slow White might have the slightly higher ceiling, and it's because of the unguardability, if that's a word, of Johnson and Zalk. I'm not sure how teams will match up with those two.
Offsides the call, so we'll re-pull it. 6-5 Minneapolis on top. First half, first of 4 games today. Here on the ESPN networks, it all comes to a climax tonight. 6 o'clock Central Time, 7 o'clock Eastern. It's the mixed finals on ESPN2. Winner of this game taking on the winner of Seattle Mixtape and Philadelphia Amp.
And Sean, we're not sure what the matchup is going to be for the mixed final, but I am positively giddy about the men's and women's final matchups that we have. 2 rematches from earlier in the tournament, Revolver Sockeye in men's, and then Molly Brown taking on the story of the 2017 U.S. Open, the women from Medellin, Colombia, Revolution. They put on a show against Seattle Riot yesterday.
Well, you aren't kidding. Caught a lot of people off guard. Riot not used to being handled like that. On the backhand, a few steps downfield, and it's taken away at the last second. It looked like Lean had position, but Boston gets the D. And now they'll try to counter on the other end, looking for Pat Barron, and he goes up, skies into the air, and a strike for Slow White. Another first-year player for Boston, and Pat Barron, the 20-year-old.
Yeah, the Zoo-Disc duo combining for the score. First, great defense on the shot intended for Lean. And then Johnson showing the versatility in his game. He's not just a defender, he's not just a deep threat. He's got all the tools in his bag. And Pat Barron just made so many plays for UMass at college nationals. I'll be honest, he was not a player I was too familiar with heading into the action in Cincinnati this year. And I'm walking the fields with my roster, and it felt like every time someone on UMass made a play, wait, that's Barron again. Again. Sure, UMass coach Tina Booth, if she's watching back in Amherst, delighted to see those two connect on this stage.
Solid first half, as expected from Johnson, propelling this Slow White offense.
That's a big break for Slow White. Get this back on serve. If you joined us a couple minutes late, the game began with a dropped pull. Jake McCain flubbed it. Slow White took a 2-0 lead. It's up 3-1, then 4 straight for Minneapolis, and from 5-3 down, a 3-1 run from Boston to get back into it. It's fun to have these changes of momentum.
It's been a roller coaster.
Pull going out of bounds from the brick mark. Trosvig initiates.
Dragon thrust goes to work, and they're going to look for a quick strike. Mexstroth with a couple of steps. She will go up and haul it in for the score. Beautiful lead by Trosvig, and a familiar target for Dragon thrust fans the past 6 years as Mexstroth catches it for the score.
He wanted the early break. It wasn't there. Mexstroth looked like she was going to go under, took off deep, and you don't need to twist Trosvig's arm to get him to take a shot. He loves to launch. It's interesting that Slow White has adjusted. They don't want him to throw that flick huck, which is his specialty, but he can throw the backhand huck too. Gorgeous throw. You know, you talk about an ultimate, that vertical huck, throwing it straight line down the field. Typically, you think you want to give your target a little more angle to attack the disc, but with Mexstroth having steps and with Trosvig putting it out in front of her, it didn't allow the defender a chance to catch up, and Mexstroth attacked the disc as perfectly as she possibly could for the score.
Like so many of these athletes we're going to see today, Mexstroth was part of that 2016 gold medal performing team at the World Ultimate and Guts Championships mixed division as they knocked off Australia 15-6 to win gold. Tremendous talent. 7-6 Dragon thrust. White's going to look deep as Trahey takes a shot just beyond the outstretched reach of the big target, Tom Herman. Herman, a great big guy running downfield. He catches a lot of these, but even the 6'5" frame can't hold this one in.
Yeah, that throw had a little extra velocity on it that he didn't realize. And then he had to turn on the jets, and it was a little awkward, kind of over the left shoulder catch near the sideline. And on that spot of the field, you don't turn over your left shoulder that often.
Dragon thrust, unable to take advantage as Boston gets the D right back. Striking distance for Smith, and he finds his target in the end zone for the score. 7-7, Caitlin Go.
First time we've seen Caitlin Go involved. She has been a spark plug to Stanford Superfly over the last several years, but originally from Lexington, Massachusetts, back playing with Slow White for the first time. And she's just a small bundle of energy. Quick, explosive, really good hands. And I think pretty quickly Jeff Smith has learned to trust her around the end zone.
Smith had a tough time with that initial pass from Turner. It looked like he wasn't ready for it. He had to double clutch, double clamp a little bit to make sure he had his bearings before he could locate Go for the score. Caitlin Go along with Caitlin Fitzgerald. Two nice additions to Slow White during the offseason.
Yeah, absolutely. Fitzgerald played in the All-Star Tour out of Kansas. First point of the tournament, Fitzgerald, number 51, had a layout block against Mischief. Very first point of the tournament. Welcome to the U.S. Open. She's still celebrating.
She is. The Dragon thrust can go in to the break leading here as we approach halftime. 7-7 our score as the pull for the second straight time goes out of bounds.
Yeah, that was a pull that deserves to be heckled. Dragon thrust trying to hold to keep us on serve at the half. Really good game, back and forth. Both teams have made a couple mistakes but have kind of stabilized. And each team has made a few highlight reel plays.
And we've seen mistakes made deep in the other team's red zone. Number of short scores in this first half. Trosvig with that high stall count, able to get rid of it to Vinoka.
It's also been a little wackiness to the game. When a game begins with a drop pull, you expect some weird coming later. Every game that Slow White's involved in, you expect weird too.
Settling on the far side, Vinoka has his second. And we go to halftime with Dragon thrust leading by a score of 8-7. A lot of purple in the stands here at the National Sports Center in Blaine, Minnesota, just a few short miles away from the headquarters of Dragon Thrust, and they lead 8-7 at the intermission.
I think Tanner Johnson was expecting a switch, or he didn't think they were forcing backhand, because he just stopped defending Vanoka. Initially, I thought he had called a pick because he just stopped, but then Johnson signaled goal. And after the play, Johnson was kind of signaling with his hands to everybody needed to talk more, to chirp more. And, well, Jake Henderson ready to join us. Congratulations, Jake, on overcoming the drop pull. You're back on serve. What was your thought when you fell behind 2-0 early?
We just got to get going. I knew once we could get our D-line on there, figure a couple of things out, just get out of our heads, we were fine.
How is this year's team unique compared to the teams that have been perennial national championship contenders over the past decade?
We're young, and we're having a lot of fun. Not that we have in the past, but we are bringing the fun all the time. At practice, outside of practice, and to games.
You look at this tournament as you get set for the Triple Crown Tour. This tournament pushed back a month. Talk about the benefits of that for you.
It helps us out a lot. We always view the end of our season as the culmination. Same with this, we're continuing to build, but I think we're a little bit, we're in better form because it's a little bit later. That's always our goal, though. This tournament, we want to win it, but we're looking towards the end. Any
major adjustments that you'll be looking to make to try to win the second half?
Just chill out a little bit on offense. I think we're trying to push it a little bit too much. Maybe deeps or some crafty throws that we don't need to.
Well, Jake, we appreciate the time. Good luck in the second half.
Thank you.
Jake Henderson, Minneapolis Dragon Thrust. They were able to overcome a shaky start. They go into the intermission. It's Dragon Thrust 8, Boston Slow White 7 in the semifinals of the 2017 U.S. Open. Minneapolis out in front of Boston 8-7 here at the intermission. Boston head coach Marshall Goff joins us. And, Coach, we knew this was going to be a roller coaster type game, extreme talent on both ends. What was the biggest surprise to you in that first half?
I don't know that it was all that surprising. Most of the stuff is kind of what happens in this game. I mean, you know, we don't expect them to drop the first pull, and we don't expect to have a couple of the just unforced miscues, but they're playing hard pressure D, putting us in some trouble there, and, you know, so we need to get that fixed, and, you know, a lot of this is what we expect in a good game against a good team.
Obviously, you guys are very familiar with each other, but they probably weren't too familiar with Ryan Turner, and they're learning about him pretty quick. When did you realize that he could be such an impact rookie for you in 2017?
I think it was the second block. It was that first one was pretty good. The second one was pretty good. The third one was a little bit of a gift. We're just going to rename that part of the field Turner's Corner, and maybe he'll get us a few more.
Any adjustments that you're looking to make for the second half?
Well, so there are a couple of things. Obviously, they've gotten away with a couple of those big inside-out hucks, and we want to slow those down. They're very good at those. They're going to get some of them, but we can't give those for free at all. And the other thing is, you know, sometimes the team puts pressure on you. You get a tiny little bit tentative, and so we've got to go out there and be really definitive with our moves. Really, you know, attack at pace, attack early in the stalls, and start to get some of that momentum.
Lexi Zalk has been a tremendous player for you the past 4 years. What's the plans moving forward in the second half, maybe to get her more touches?
Well, we got to open up the space for that. If we're in a little bit better rhythm, then she's going to have room to operate, and she's real good in that room. We know that Dragon is, you know, got some good defenders out there, but we trust Lexi a lot. She can absolutely do that. Her game is predicated on a lot of athleticism, but she's really smart about how to use it too, and so we'll give her some space for that.
Marshall, good luck in the second half.
Thanks very much. Have fun, guys.
Marshall Goff, Boston Slow White. They're always having a good time. His team knows how to have fun, although it's easy to have fun when you're the defending national champs. 8-7, Minneapolis, second half poll coming up next. $15 goals, 15 different goal scorers in the first half. Minneapolis Dragon Thrust with an 8-7 lead. Trosvig, like he normally does, providing the helpers. He leads Dragon Thrust with the 3 assists. Smith and Johnson each with a pair in the first half. So we start half number 2. It will be Slow White to receive. So they work their way toward the south end zone, left to right here at the beautiful National Sports Center in Blaine, Minnesota. What a weekend for USA Ultimate. Over 3,500 competitors, fans gathering here in Minnesota, suburb just north of the Twin Cities, to watch Ultimate. We talked about that at dinner last night, Evan. 3,500 here. Would that have been the case, say, 5-6 years ago, just showing you the trend where the sport's going?
Not even close. First of all, developing YCC and the U.S. Open concurrently for the first time. It's a cool dynamic. It presents some challenges as well, because a lot of the top elite players coach youth teams, which is a really cool aspect that they give back and develop the younger future generation. That obviously leads to some challenges if a player has a game to play and coach simultaneously. But it's a cool dynamic, and you mentioned this complex. We were here 3 years ago. U.S. Open's going to be here 3 years in a row, this year, next year, and the following year. And I can't wait to come back. It's very organized. It's treated well. It's massive. It's hard to get from one end of it to the other quickly, but it's a great spot for Ultimate players, parents, and fans.
Opening possession, very methodical, working their way downfield is Slow White as they creep into the red zone. Johnson will get or check that, Ferguson with it. Backhand, past a diving defender. Soft touch in the score. Slow White looking good on the opening pull as they take it down with Vicky Chang. Very patient.
I think that was Neil Hankey who tried to poach off the handler for the bid. He almost got it. Excellent anticipation. Just sagging off in the lane a little bit. He was very, very close.
It's a game of inches. Vicky Chang, this is the only organized team sport that she has ever played. She's been with Brute Squad and Overhaul in her career, her 4th year with Boston Slow White. A couple of points today, a goal and an assist.
How about it? She's our 16th different goal scorer.
Trend continues.
And
so many weapons.
Maybe the thing that has surprised me the most from the first 16 points is the fact that Miles Montgomery Butler, who led the mixed division in assists at the tournament through pool play, has been a relative non-factor. He doesn't have an assist. He's certainly been a stable quarterback back there, hasn't made any mistakes. The fact that Slow White is dead even and Montgomery Butler hasn't been in the thick of it, I think speaks to, 1, their depth, and 2, how well they're playing.
Yeah, he had 15 assists in the first 5 games. 8-8, here's Dragon Thrust, their first offensive possession in the second half. Trosvig with the 3 helpers in the first half. Will settle over to Alicia Carr. Mark being applied by Fitzgerald. They come near side to Mextroff, and a pick was called. Mextroff with 1 goal. She was one of the 8 different thrust players to score in that first half. Back to Alicia Carr. Again, a tight mark from Fitzgerald. Clark on the backhand, working the force side. Vanoka really threw it away. Nice save as Dragon Thrust keeps position. Trosvik. Well, he wanted to take a shot.
You can tell the respect that Slow White has quickly given Vanoka by putting Johnson on him. Vanoka may have the quickness. Johnson obviously has great speed and the size advantage in that matchup.
Hit called out of the stack, so Dragon Thrust will reset it. They get it to Vanoka. As I mentioned, you see Johnson shadowing him. Back to the handler, Carr. Carr, one of the veterans, 32 years old, her 8th year with this Dragon Thrust squad. There's Clark. And the pitch and catch with Carr. Looking for that inside break, gets it. Vanoka settles it back over to Mextroff. Interesting, Evan, in the first half we saw a lot of Hucks, not a lot of patience offensively, but both teams on their first possession very methodical with the disc.
I think part of that is the defense changing up, not wanting to allow those Hucks, wanting to force the opponent to really earn it. But so far, no turnovers here in the second half. It is early.
Carr will take a shot toward the end zone looking for Clark, and he hangs on. Despite Hatchett getting his hand on the disc, a big bear paw reached out by Clark, and he put those claws in as he held on to it.
The first multi-goal scorer of the game is Mike Clark. And while it was a really nice catch, the throw was impressive too. Because Carr saw the space developing. You see the cut beginning from the right side of the stack, throwing to that open space. The discipline of drag and thrust downfield cutters to leave that lane open. Ultimate is a game of creating space and not cutting off your teammates and playing together. And drag and thrust preaches that, practices it, and they show it off on the big stage.
Alicia Carr has had a disc in her hand since she was young, grew up playing around the sport with her father. Part of the very beginning of women's ultimate at Duluth, playing with the men from Northern Lights and a small amount of women, so she goes back a ways in the mixed division as far as competing and having a lot of success.
She plays with confidence and a swagger that you like to see. There's no tentative in her game, as that throw illustrates.
Each team holds to start the second half. Good deep pull. Slow White will go to work. Into the center, nearly a collision there as a couple of Slow White players came together. Ryan Turner settles over to Steve Sullivan. Sullivan on the flick along the near sideline to Ferguson. Ferguson picked up by Drescher. And a pick is called downfield.
How about Steve Sullivan beginning his 11th year on Slow White? And Mike Miller, who's not here this weekend, still has him beat, year 13 on this long-time squad that was founded in 2004.
Very active in the USAU as a player rep for the mixed division is Sullivan, as you see Drescher get a hand on it. And a turnover for Slow White, break opportunity for drag and thrust.
It's a wise play by Drescher. Little surprised by the throw from Jeff Smith. Uncharacteristic mistake.
Drescher with the flick, the huck toward the end zone, and it's tipped away. I think a couple of Minnesota players fighting for that disc as Niles went up real late. He was the last one to jump in that fray, if you will, as Fasek Carmen was trying to time her jump, and then here comes her teammate Niles over the top of everybody.
An example of Fasek Carmen's inexperience on this stage. She's a rookie, she's just 21. She's been playing since high school, but that positioning she took in a mixed game with the male players coming at her just wasn't the position that was going to enable her with the flow to the disc to make that play.
Shot downfield. Just past Drescher and then just past the diving Ferguson. Each of them missed it by a centimeter. Ferguson trying to catch his breath as he landed hard.
Not many people in the sport who throw their body around the way Drescher does. Just with a reckless disregard for his own well-being sometimes. He's upset with himself that he didn't get the D. He may have hurt himself too. I mean, he's dealt with nagging injuries. He's had shoulder separations.
He's a warrior.
Yeah. But he's so valuable. And, you know, he may not have the size of Tanner Johnson or the vertical leap of Khalif El-Salam, but he has a fearlessness about the way he plays.
And that's what adds a couple of inches to his frame. That heart, that tenacity. Dragon thrust back on the attack. They get it front and center to Vinoka. Vinoka's series of fakes. Breaking free is Robin Fassett-Carman. First-year player, 21-year-old from Colorado College. Shot toward the end zone. A breakdown defensively by Slow White. And that's about as easy as goal as you're going to see Brian Schoenrock haul it. Nobody within 10 yards of Schoenrock. How do you forget about one of the stars from Minnesota?
Nice redemption as well from Fassett-Carman, who could not come down with a deep shot. But the 6-foot-tall Dragon thrust rookie with just a gorgeous put. I don't think Ryan Turner believed that Fassett-Carman would take that shot. He was anticipating the undercut, and then as soon as it went up, he's like, oh, wow, too good. I can't get that. Fassett-Carman played high school ultimate in the Twin Cities. And Jake Henderson's wife, Kristen, coached against her. And Robin Fassett-Carman was a thorn in the side of Jake's wife. And then Jake told her that, yeah, remember that girl Robin that used to torment you? She's on my team now. And she was like, what?
You always want to go get those thorns and invite them to your team.
Right.
Schoenrock with his second goal today. This match is the largest lead, correct, Evan, from Minneapolis?
Yeah.
It's been that tight in the first half. Slow White with the early lead, and then we saw that 4-0 run by Dragon thrust to kind of take control, and they've held serve ever since.
This is a really critical offensive point. You know it's important because Tanner Johnson is out there, but that's incomplete. Something must have happened to Miles Montgomery Butler because we haven't seen him on the field yet in the second half. Not sure if he tweaked something but appears he's unable to go.
Mexstroth into the red zone for Dragon thrust, trying to take their largest lead of the game in this semifinal. Comes back into the center as they swing it all the way over. Schoenrock, far side, has an opening, clear avenue, and a strike and a score. The swing set that up. And an easy goal as Hankey hauls it in.
You're starting to see the business look of Minneapolis Dragon thrust. These two teams have different styles. Slow White wants to be weird, have fun, use their talent, be successful. Dragon thrust's idea of having fun is competing as hard as they possibly can. They want to have fun, but they do want to be focused and intense and serious, and they have perfected that style. And when they get in rhythm, they capitalize on your mistakes like we saw right there. And Hankey's a nice addition to this team, longtime member of Chad Larson experience. He's been best friends with the Leans since he was in high school with them. And I think he maybe wanted to join Dragon thrust in the past, but apparently he said, I was waiting for you guys to lose because I didn't want to join the team and then be the reason that you lost. So he was probably rooting against him. They lost last year, and now he's back and joining the team for the first time. I was talking with Jess Howler, number 24, who missed last year and with an injury, but now she's back. She was part of all three title teams. So, Jess Howler doesn't know what it's like to lose in the championship. She's only won the last 4 years.
Neil Hankey has been a patient man if he's been waiting for Dragon thrust to lose, as he is into the fray here tonight. 7 o'clock Eastern, ESPN 2, the mixed division final. The winner of this game gets the winner of AMP and mixed tape. Speaking of Philadelphia AMP, our thoughts, prayers, and condolences going out to their coach, Patrick Sherlock, at the passing of his grandmother. Patrick actually flew out earlier this morning to be with family, so our thoughts and prayers with the Sherlock family. His wife, Raha, still participating in today's action.
Yeah, and that obviously is really sad, and that impacts AMP to lose your coach, the calming voice and presence on your sidelines. And it's not like he's a new coach. He has been an anchor of that program since its inception.
talk about ESPN2 coming up tonight. Obviously, there's still a lot of game with Minneapolis up 11-8, but what type of atmosphere if Dragon Thrust can find out a way to knock off Slow White, get into the finals tonight in Blaine? That could be an electric atmosphere for primetime television.
I do think there would be a partisan crowd if that were to evolve.
A lot of work to do, though, as Boston Slow White try to get something started. They had a very good, patient first possession of the second half, followed by 3 straight turnovers, so they go to Mr. Reliable, and that's a good source. Tanner Johnson with Slow White back on the board.
Not a bad lever to pull. You've been broken a couple times. You need a score. Hey, Tanner, go deep. And a nice shot from his college teammate, Pat Barron. Second time they've hooked up. Earlier in the first half, it was Johnson throwing deep. This time he goes deep. And he's having a solid statistical day, but this game is going to be determined by whether or not he and his teammates can generate some Ds down the stretch.
Pat Barron the assist, Tanner Johnson with the goal. Johnson's going to be heading to Perth in 2018, representing the U24 team for the United States.
Yeah, fun to see those rosters come out. Genuine, bona fide all-star teams, and I think you could make an all-star team of the players that got cut that could really challenge the teams that are going. With the talent that they have and the chips on their shoulders, it would be compelling.
Talk about momentum built on the international circuit by the United States for what they've accomplished the last 2 years. Really impressive.
Well, USA is still the dominant presence, but the landscape is changing internationally. Every tournament a little more competitive in every division, it feels like. And the exposure to USA Ultimate's best of the best, like Dragon Thrust, is what has largely propelled a country like Colombia to develop their program. They get to compete against the best, and that's how they develop to be in the finals of the U.S. Open.
2 All-Stars here with Mekstroth and Lexi Zalk, and it was Mekstroth able to get free. Able to get behind Zalk for the score for Dragon Thrust.
I love the addition that Brian Vinoka is on this Dragon Thrust team. I mean, he's just going to be a super solid downfield guy, initiating downfield, but clearly he has the throws as well. That is one of the underrated pickups in the mixed division. And I bet you in Sarasota this October, we'll be looking at that as one of the top 5 transactions in the mixed division in 2017.
Vinoka has a D as well today for Minnesota Dragon Thrust, and now a 3-point lead once again at 12-9.
So we played 21 points now, and more than half of them have been turnover free. 5 of the last 7 points have been played without a turnover. And I don't think that's an indictment on the defense. I think they're playing pretty good defense. It's just good, smooth offense by and large. If that disc hits his thigh or his shin or his toe before it hits the ground, Slow White would return the favor for the earlier drop pull.
Right between the wickets, showing the ability to stretch the groin a little bit that time, spreading the legs to avoid disaster.
Saw that happen on the beach in France a couple times. Someone trying to dodge the pull, and it catches them in the ankle before it hits the sand. You know, the wind does crazy things on the beach. It's heartbreaking.
Trahey looking for Possible swing, but a pick call downfield. They'll reset it just outside the red zone. Second half of this mixed semifinal, Minneapolis has held the lead pretty much since the midway point of that first half. Steve Sullivan, front and center on the backhand, some room to work and jumping into the end zone, but just shy was Trahey, and this time they will finish it as he gets it right back to Sullivan for the score. Sullivan the goal, and then answered, and there's that offensive efficiency you were just talking about again in the second half.
Almost a turnover on the pull, but
yeah,
they do work it downfield, and the institutional memory of this duo. Sullivan in year 11 on Slow White, Trahey in year 8 with this team. They're still having fun being weird. One of the things that Slow White did this season, you know, they have a wide disparity of ages on their team. Guys like Mike Miller and Steve Sullivan and Rosiano in their mid-30s. So have players in their early 20s still in college. They created a mix, a playlist. I was going to say a mixtape, but it's probably more of a playlist with the song that was #1 in the nation from the week that every player was born. And it's quite the disparity. You got Steve Sullivan's song was Beat It by Michael Jackson. And then you had Pat Barron, who missed the Macarena by 1 week. And by the way, Marshall Goff's song, Marshall Goff said that he went to his 5-year reunion the year that Pat Barron was born. Marshall Goff's song was Henry Mancini's love theme from Romeo and Juliet. It was an instrumental. I think the last instrumental, purely instrumental, that was #1 on the charts.
Wow.
Do you remember that one?
I do remember that one. I don't know if I should admit it, but yes, I do remember that. Turnover by Dragon Thrust as they took a shot toward the end zone, but Claire Oakley unable to haul it in on the feed by Mextra. That blade coming down sharply there, and Oakley unable to get to it to cut it off.
By the way, it was Andy Schachter who made that playlist, and I just think it's a fantastic idea.
I'd love to hear it. What's with the instrumentals this year? We saw Revolver yesterday cranking out the tunes of Enya. Some nice, relaxing instrumental sounds.
They also listen to the Moana soundtrack to get fired up before most games.
Oh, missed chance, Evan, by Boston. These possessions becoming more and more precious down, too, as they try to make up some ground. Red zone turnover.
That turnover significantly more costly at 12-10 than it is at 2-0. For obvious reasons. Nice break.
Yeah, he zips it over to Clark. Attacking position. Clark comes right back to Trosvik. Clark immediately cuts toward the front pylon, and he makes the catch for the score. Perfect execution on the underneath cut. Clark has another. Trosvik with a helper, and Dragon Thrust keeps it rolling.
Really an unforced giveaway. Just a poor throw near their own goal line. And Jeff Trosvik is the total package as a thrower. I mean, we've seen the hucks, both backhand and flick. We've seen the breaks. And that disc, without a huge window, you had the sideline, you had Tanner Johnson's 6'4" extension, and still the trust in Clark to make the catch, and he pays it off.
Four assists today for Trosvik, now 9 this weekend.
I pulled the big boy.
Stars are showing up here in the biggest of stages for Dragon Thrust in the semifinals, trying to push this program back into the U.S. Open Championship tonight.
They finally broke through as a program. They've been a nationals competitor since basically their inception. But in 2013, that's when they broke through. They love going to Frisco, Texas. They had a blast in Frisco all 3 years there, won national titles. The first 2 of those years, they really had an alpha dog. James Hron was a dynamo downfield, really did everything. And chatting about it with Jake Henderson this morning. I think there was a lot of people that wondered when James Hron retired after that second title, would they continue to be a championship contender? And the answer obviously is yes, because of the depth they created, the confidence they gained, and I think like a lot of good teams, they developed talent. Guys who were role players became stars. Players assumed larger roles when Hron stepped aside, and it's been really cool to see.
Another turnover by Boston, the tough mark by Erica Bacon. That's what she does, and then the downfield defense with that high stall count on, and Slow White coughs it up. Chance for Dragon Thrust really to go for the juggler here, leading 13-10 already, sniffing at a 4-point advantage, but they won't get it.
Aaron throw from Pat Niles.
Ryan Turner is going to shoot downfield, looking for the long huck. Turner can't get to it on the 70-yard fire downfield as Boston looked for the bookends.
Just a little too much blade and not enough float on that disc.
Pat Niles marked by Smith. Series of fakes, count mounting. Niles knows he has to get rid of it. Cutting underneath near sideline was Marty Adams. And then a drop gives it right back to Slow White.
This is as many turns as we've had on any point in this game. 4. Pick downfield.
Lexi Zalk, number 1 for Boston, part of this unit. Oziano. See the cut toward the front is Trahey. He'll make the catch a yard shy, and then they finish it off with the score to Ryan Turner. Initial cut by Trahey, and then the easy feed into Turner. And Slow White down 2.
More of a turfed throw than a drop. Want to say something about Marty Adams, number 12 in the white jersey there. He could have gone up straight for that disc and created an inevitable collision, and he chose not to. And basically valued the health and well-being of his opponent more than getting the disc. And it says clearly in the rules, it's a non-contact sport. It is not win at all costs. He might have been able to get that disc first. I don't think so, but maybe he could have exploded toward it. But there's no way he could have gotten that disc first and not had a dangerous collision. Respect the play by Adams.
You respect it and you appreciate it because it's a split-second decision that these athletes have to make in those situations.
And, I mean, he's not a veteran player. He's 21 out of the University of Minnesota Duluth.
Good look at Marty Adams, his first year, young and athletic, really eager coming into this season for his first mixed club experience. Spent some time with Imperial.
Left to your screen, you see the time. We're 100 seconds away from the soft cap. Probably won't be a factor.
They go to the brick on the pole out of bounds. Starting the offense is Trosvig, and this will be a strip call as getting a hand on it was Chris Waite. They go right back to Trosvig. Dragon Thrust leading by 2 in this mixed semifinal. Late in the second half. Trosvig, forehand flick, looking for Meckstroth. It's that Zalk-Meckstroth matchup. And for the third time, Meckstroth hauls it in. She is fun to watch. So smooth on the women's side. Able to time her leap, and the beautiful feed by Trosvig, leading her perfectly over the talented defender Lexi Zalk.
Been one of the go-to plays for Dragon Thrust for years. Mexstroth is one of those players that stepped up when James Hron stepped aside. This play used to be Trosvig to Hron. Now it's Trosvig to Mexstroth. She might be the closest thing they have to what James Hron was in terms of a downfield dominant cutter.
Here we go, Dragon! Here we go!
Really, one of the differences in the game is just that Dragon Thrust has had so many more chances to break. Dragon Thrust offense has been pretty smooth. Most of the turnover-free points have been from Minneapolis's O-line. There's the horn. Soft cap will go on after this point. Again, unlikely to be a factor.
See the number of purple jerseys in the crowd here at the National Sports Center. A lot of folks anticipating possible U.S. Open Championship tonight for Minneapolis Dragon Thrust. They're 1 point away from punching their ticket into the finals. Let's see if the defending national champs, along with the defending U.S. Open champs from the Atlantic Northeast, can spoil the celebration and pull off some late magic. Drescher with an extremely tight mark on Ferguson. Ferguson gets rid of it though, and now a shot downfield by Vicky Cheng. A couple of big bodies in the area, and it's taken down by the smallest of bodies in Lexi Zalk. You had the shadow of Tom Herman. I think everybody thought Herman was going to go up, but there was the crafty Zalk weaving her way through to an opening, hauling in the long strike.
Size only does you so much. Reading of the disc is almost just as important. And Zalk had this lined up all the way. You know, it might be a throw that Cheng wants back. Obviously, it worked out. Kind of a 50-50, but Zalk improves your odds when she's one of the 50% chances.
Beautiful combination. Size, athleticism, great instincts for Lexi Zalk, and that's a big reason she's leading the slow wide offense like she has so many times. 15 goals. Big smile on Cheng's face. She knows her team must come up with a couple of stops, though, and force at least a couple of breaks. Marshall Goff hoping final instructions for his defensive line. Take a look at the D-line that he's going to be sending out. Kirsten Lundquist trying to slow down that line of 7 for Dragon Thrust. Jake McCain, Alicia Carr. Ball again for Slow White goes out of bounds. Chance for Dragon Thrust. They can score here to secure their spot in the finals tonight. Start with the stack. First one to break has been an active one. That's Vinoka. Alicia Carr has played a solid game from her handler position. Sends it over to Mexstroth. Picked up by Zalk. Mexstroth into the center to McCain. McCain wanting to redirect traffic. He wants Carr to come back. She does. Alicia Carr hounded. Trying to get that break, unable to do so. Nice job by Slow White. They settle on the force side to Trosvig.
That was critical that Trosvig emerged because Carr's stall count was rising.
Carr being marked by Annie Fisher, the fourth-year player, and we have a pick called on the play. Carr taking a sigh of relief, as you mentioned. She knew that count was on. Tough D by Annie Fisher.
We talked a lot about Annie Fisher last fall at Club Nationals. Veteran of the team. She was getting ready to move to Montana to become a rancher. She had her car packed. She went out there for several months. Now she's back in Boston. I was surprised to see her again, but it's good to see her.
They're happy to have her. There's a swing attempt going up high to make the grab is Trosvig. Trosvig, the magician with the disc, will try to wave his wand. Into the air it goes, looking for Clark, looking to punch Dragon Thrust into the championship, and they will go into the finals. only fitting the dynamic duo for Minneapolis connecting, and a 15-12 win for Minneapolis Dragon Thrust.
Just an awesome second half from Dragon Thrust. Very few turnovers. Even when they didn't throw it to the wide open space, they had players making plays. Tough way for the game to end for Walker Hatchett, who was right there. But Trosvig just putting the disc up. True 50-50, and Clark with his third goal of the game, his second in the second half, and they will play on their home turf, on the natural grass, on their home natural grass in the championship game tonight.
Minneapolis Dragon Thrust, for as impressive as their resume is, they've never won a U.S. Open championship. They moved one step closer, 15-12 winners today.
The U.S. Open Ultimate Championships are presented by Discraft Ultrastar. Find the official disc of USA Ultimate at more than 1,900 U.S. retail locations.
The finals are set in all three divisions here in the 2017 U.S. Open Championships. Minneapolis Dragon Thrust just a few moments ago knocking off defending national and U.S. Open champion Boston Slow White 15-12. Minneapolis will take on Seattle Mixtape. We understand they have defeated Philadelphia Amp. Jeff Trosvig with 6 assists in this game. He joins us. And first off, Jeff, congratulations. This had to be a special weekend playing here in Minneapolis as you guys battled to get in the spotlight tonight, national television, and you have your ticket. Take us through the emotions of what it feels like.
It feels really amazing. We had a lot of turnover this year. We lost a lot of great vets, but we have a lot of really, really young talent. And this day, these quarters, the semis, really we came together. And, I mean, I got 6 assists because they're so good. You know, it's easy to throw to people that are this good, and Alicia really played an amazing game. You know, when she's got it, we're so chill. And really, we're just so excited to get back in the finals. We've never won this tournament, and we hope we can take it down over, I assume, Seattle.
Jeff, what's it like throwing deep to Sarah Mextra?
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. If she's guarded over the top 5 yards, it's kind of still open usually. But it's been a blessing to have her on our team for a lot of years. She's really an anchor, and it's a blessing to get to throw to her.
Obviously, this Slow White team ended Dragons' championship reign last year. Was that on your mind coming into this game?
Yeah, absolutely. We treated this like a revenge game. We know they're trying to take us out, and we wanted to show them that we're not the underdogs anymore. This is our game, and we showed them that we can still play.
You've had some fun and some contentious games against Seattle Mixtape in the past.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You just found out that you'll be playing them tonight. What's going through your mind?
We're excited. We're excited. The last time we played them, it was super windy, nationals, quarters, and I think our deep game kind of caught them by surprise, so I would expect to see them play a little more over the top, maybe a little straight up. But they're always gunning for us. They love beating us, and when they do, they love rubbing it in our face, so we're not going to let them do that this time.
Jeff, congratulations. Enjoy the game tonight. National television, what a moment for the sport of ultimate.
Yeah, man, ESPN too, the one on TV. I'm excited.
6 assists, Jeff Trosvig, Minneapolis Dragon Thrust as they knock off Boston Slow White. Time now for the Discraft play of the game, brought to you by Discraft. It's the semifinal clincher here. Trosvig to the big man Clark. Your Discraft play of the game.
Ironically, that might have been his worst throw of the game because it wasn't an easy score, but Mike Clark able to make the play in the pack for the game-clinching goal. One of the 6 assists for Trosvig, and Clark had a big day. One of Clark's goals from Alicia Carr, who now joins us down on the field. And Alicia, congratulations on the victory today. What was the motivation coming into this game? One, wanted to be on ESPN2 tonight, but also this Slow White team has been a thorn in your side over the past year.
Oh, thorn in our side, I wouldn't say. I mean, I remember watching Slow White in their first national championship in '06. That was my first year playing club. I think we've always kind of had a friendly rivalry. Thorn in our side, it's more of a thing to rise up for.
you're such a calming influence as a handler there. Take us through your game. And this has been a sport that you've been around since you were very young, playing with your father. What's it mean tonight to take your approach to this game and have a chance to showcase it to the world?
I am really honored to be on this great squad, have been for a really long time. As far as my game goes, I'm actually a D-line handler, so this was kind of a strange game for me. But coach tells us, get ready to do whatever, like, we need you in a different role, and you do it. And Jeff and I have known each other a long time, go back college years, and we make it work together with Jeff and all of his really special flair.
I know you have a bunch of rookies that you're proud of, and Trosvig, an accomplished veteran. I was saying how Brian Vanoka, Bevon, could be one of the most underrated transactions in the mixed division this year, because I'm not sure who guards him with his quickness. What has he added to your team in just already a short time?
That guy can jump if you haven't gotten to see that yet. So he's got a giant window to shoot for, which is awesome. He's also a delight as a teammate. He smiles, and he pressures a lot of our guys who have, kind of taken it for granted how good they are. He's making them work a little better at practice, making us a better team. I really, really love to have Bevon on Dragon Thrust this year.
Alicia, lastly, Seattle Mixtape tonight will be your opponent. You've had plenty of battles on big stages with them. Your thoughts on matching up with those fun fellas from the Pacific Northwest?
Looking forward to it. I know our team is as well. Mixtape is another team you need to rise up for. They've got a stronger mental game than most, too, so we need to be ready for that. Looking forward to a good game. I'm sure you guys will see.
Alicia, relax. Enjoy the afternoon. We'll see you later tonight under the lights.
Thanks, Evan.
Alicia Carr, Minneapolis, Seattle. The dust has settled. The showdown is on tonight for the U.S. Open Championship as we kick off the Triple Crown Tour in style. Mixtape Dragon Thrust, 7 o'clock Eastern on ESPN2. That's the story from Blaine, Minnesota. Don't go far, though. We dive into championship coverage. It's coming up next with the men. So for Evan Lepler, I'm Sean Kinney saying so long from the Sports Center in Blaine, Minnesota. Your final score, Dragon Thrust 15, Boston 12. All games airing on the ESPN networks or streaming live on the ESPN app. Or to watch the entire game on replay as well as other games on our family of networks, log on to thewatchespn.com or download the Watch ESPN app. This has been a presentation of ESPN.